Hello friends and strangers. Hi strangers. Welcome to another video of just me talking about my favorite movies. And we finally made it to the 80s. The decade that gave us dozens of movies and movie franchises that have been worshipped to this day, along with new movie trends, genres and subgenres. A decade so impactful, so loved, that it never really went away. Seriously, The Wedding Singer, a movie about 80s nostalgia, came out in 1998. Not even a whole decade after, and people were already asking, hey, do you remember this? Yes, I do. You never let me forget it.
Ugh, no one will ever solve that.
So even if you think that the 80s nostalgia is over and it's the 90s now and the Y2K, trust me, it will be the 80s again after this.
So what should I expect?
Think 80s?
80s. I like the 80s.
From now on, I'm gonna start making a top 10 or even a top 20 for each year. But for now, let's start small with my 8 favorite movies from 1980.
Gentlemen, we're history.
I said many times before how much I love time travel movies, and there were more time travel movies in the 80s than all the other decades of cinema combined. In fact, I think I can have at least one favorite for each year, and for this year is The Final Countdown. Modern aircraft carrier USS Nimitz enters a time storm and ends up in the 40s, a day before the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Every man on this ship knows that we have radar and visual contact with the Japanese fleet approaching Pearl Harbor on December the 6th, 1941. Now what do we do about it?
With their knowledge of the future and their superior firepower, they can not only stop the attack, but even end the whole war. Should they do it though, risking changing history forever?
For Christ's sake, what is this? Some half-assed Princeton debating society. We are in a war situation. This is a United States warship, or at least it used to be, or will be, or what the hell ever. Oh God damn it, you can drive yourself crazy just trying to think about this stuff.
Paid by the US Navy, this is basically a glorified ad for the army, with the expected dose of military porn, patriotism and, why not, misogyny.
Arthur, will you leave the girl enough clothes on not to catch cold? She's too valuable to me right now.
Have you slept with her yet?
What kind of a question is that to ask a married man?
You son of a gun.
And in the heart of it is the classic time travel dilemma of killing baby Hitler, but from the army's perspective.
The United States of America falls under attack. Our job is to defend her. The past, present, and future.
There is also enough fish out of water elements to keep me entertained. You have both people from the past marveling at future technology, and people from the future trying to figure out what the hell is going on for the first half of the movie.
Gentlemen,
We're at general quarters because I don't have any idea what's happened.
Okay, next. It's very interesting that Flash Gordon, a movie based on the pulp comics and TV series that inspired George Lucas to make Star Wars, came out the same year as The Empire Strikes Back. And while Lucas was giving to those pulp space adventures a very darker tone, Flash Gordon went the way of Barbarella, turning the campiness to 11. It works though, to a point. Things are starting to look cheap the closer the camera gets, but isn't this true for a lot of movies? I mean, visually this is no different than Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok. I have to mention the soundtrack, of course, written by Queen and maybe the biggest asset of the movie. As for its biggest flaw, well, besides the racial stereotypes, unfortunately it's Flash Gordon himself.
Friends!
Neither the actor nor the writing did him any favors. He's just a big potato, and I can only imagine how much better the movie would be with a more charismatic actor in the role.
Back from the dead. I've saved you.
My God! How?
I think the man sitting next to me is a doctor.
Sir, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry I have to wake you. You a doctor?
That's right.
I traveled the banks of the river of Jordan.
We talked before about Jim Abrahams, David Zucker and Jerry Zucker, the comedy trio behind all the crazy surreal comedies of the 80s, with Airplane being the movie that put them on the map.
You'd better tell the captain we've got to land as soon as we can. This woman has to be gotten to a hospital.
A hospital? What is it?
It's a big building with patients, but that's not important right now.
It's a parody of airplane disaster movies, like the Airport series and more specifically a movie from '57 called 0 Hour. And it's also their first attempt at a movie with an actual plot, although I don't think they're there yet. At times, the movie feels more than a collection of jokes, and it will take them to make another one to find the right balance between jokes and story.
Okay, boys, let's get some pictures.
I want the motherfucker wolf.
The Gods Must Be Crazy is not a movie that I remember often or bring in conversations. But there was a time when this movie was everybody's favorite comedy.
Morning, madam.
Good morning.
It's about a man whose tribe lives deep in the Kalahari Desert, totally isolated from the rest of the world, discovering one day a metaphor for colonization.
One day, something fell from the sky. He had never seen anything like this in his life. It looked like water, but it was harder than anything else in the world. He wondered why the gods had sent this thing down to the earth.
He brings it back to his village, and soon enough it starts creating troubles. So he decides to travel to the end of the world and give it back to the gods. At the same time, there is a B story with a guy and his slapstick relationship with his car. A romance.
Thank you.
And a military coup happening in a nearby city.
And 6 million for the improvement of the breeding stock.
We can't speak.
It's beautiful, filled with African vistas, and it remains one of the most unique and charming movies. Moving on. I always thought of this more of a part 2 than a sequel to the first Superman movie, so everything I said about the first one is true here as well. These are the quintessential Superman movies, at least for the classic representation of the character. Although I always preferred this one because it has a better villains, more action and bigger stakes. Even Luthor works better in this one. By the way, I watched the Donner cut this time, that came out in 2006, and it's supposed to be as close to the original vision as possible. On the other hand, it has the same ending with the first one, so that was a bummer.
A pie in the face comes with the job. That's what my mom says, and she should know.
I don't get it.
A real artist must never be afraid of what other people are going to say about him. Anyway, it was a time when I really realized something about myself.
Well, maybe you didn't realize it right.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, everybody falls in love with their analyst. There's a word for that, isn't there?
Homosexual.
For some reason I remember Fame to be more of a dance movie, you know, like Flashdance or Dirty Dancing, but it's not. It has dancing inside, sure, and singing and playing music, but it's closer to a proto-teen movie than anything else, or a teen drama.
Dance is the hardest department in the school.
Acting is the hardest profession in the world.
Music
is the hardest profession of them all. Isn't that right, Mrs. Tarsoff?
Indeed.
Shot almost like a documentary, it follows the lives of various students in the 4 years of studies in the New York School of Performing Arts. And although it becomes almost comically dramatic for a minute, cramming all the difficulties of life in the last 20 minutes, it's overall the definition of a feel-good movie.
One man is not an orchestra.
Who needs orchestras? You can do it all with a keyboard and an amp and enough power.
You're going to play all by yourself?
You don't need anybody else.
That's not music, Martelli. That's masturbation.
And the right movie to take us to the new decade, prepare us for what comes next, while still having a lot of love and sensitivities of the 70s.
Don't lecture me. All right, Sir Lawrence.
Look, all anyone ever promised you was 7 classes a day and a hot lunch. The rest is up to you, Ralph. I mean, back in the Middle Ages, actors, they didn't even want to bury us.
Well, they do now.
Not if you're good.
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
The Empire Strikes Back is of course everybody's favorite Star Wars movie, and we all know the reasons. As I was saying earlier with Flash Gordon, while everyone else was trying to catch up with the first Star Wars, Lucas was already chasing the game, making something that looked light years away from everything else at the time, including the first Star Wars.
I love you.
I know.
But all those things that make Episode 5 great are things that I appreciated more as a grown-up. Because back when I was a kid, this was my least favorite Star Wars movie. And not only because of its darker tone. You see, the first Star Wars movie is this magical adventure with moon-sized super weapons, exploding planets, 1 in a million shots and parades at the end. What do we have here? Hoth, an empty and frozen wasteland, Dagobah, an empty and boring swamp, and Cloud City, which is the worst. Cloud City looks like a TV set, or you know, like a 3D model that they forgot to put the textures on. And the worst thing about the movie is that it doesn't really have an ending. Maybe it's a common thing now, but it wasn't back then, and I never liked it anyway. Where's my fucking parade? What is this? Clearly not my favorite Star Wars movie as a kid. And my favorite movie of 1980 is Altered States. Altered States used to be my favorite weird and psychedelic movie in my teens. It has everything a young Than would love. High science fiction concept, fringe science, religious iconography, even mystical psychedelic drugs. And of course some of the trippiest visuals and visual effects put on screen. William Hurt plays a university professor, experimenting with sensory deprivation tanks, trying to prove that different states of consciousness exist and connect to them. He later adds a very strong hallucinogenic drug to the mix and starts having a breakthrough, but with some unforeseen consequences.
Transient ischemic attack, that's what it was.
He's got his voice back.
It wasn't an ischemic attack. It wasn't a seizure. You saw the x-rays, Mason. There was clearly something anterior to the larynx that looked like a laryngeal sac. That's strictly simian. I obviously regressed to some quasi-simian creature.
This is, by the way, one of the movies that made me interested in hallucinogenic drugs. On one hand, interested in trying someday, but also very scared of them because, you know, this might happen. It's also the movie that the band a-ha ripped off on their Take On Me music video. So here's my list again. Like every decade in the beginning, 1980 still carries a lot from the 70s, but it won't be long until it starts taking its own identity. And that's it for now. See you in the next video, hopefully soon. Bye.